What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and welcome to a short preview of Dancing Dwarves. No, actually, this is Deep Rock Galactic, which technically is about 4 dwarves who jump into procedurally generated planets to grab some loot and try to get back home. It's 4 aged adventurers far past their years and always complaining. So it's a little bit like a futuristic Golden Girls, but strip mine out Betty White and all the others and replace them with 4 versions of the older grandmother, and then strap some drills on them and send them on their way. Deep Rock Galactic right now is for $24.99. I'm going to discuss all the different elements. I want to say thanks to Silver and thanks to Takedown for their time spent. They're both patrons, and we got to spend some time playing it, and we'll just jump into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is you can see some of these upgrades. Basically, the entire game is really based around you leveling up your dwarf. You're leveling up the different items that they have, and to do so, you need to collect, of course, money. You need to have the right experience, but you also need to make sure that you have the right materials, and that's where this comes in. Now, you can see various different places where it says 0 games active and so forth. You can see on the right, mission length and game complexity. Now, or cave complexity. When it talks about cave complexity, that's important because the game absolutely revels in verticality. And that verticality, even with a 1 in the cave complexity, will be something that you actually notice. So you really have to be a little bit careful when you try to jump into these. So we're going to show you what it's like. You choose your mission. I've already invited my friends. They're already in the game. And you jump in your digger here and you go down to procedurally based planets. These are really no different than a Minecraft style game, of course, or you just wait for Takedown. He's always last one in, last one out. He's always got to check something. He's probably buying a beard. There's different cosmetic things that you can get. All right, here we go. Of course, you can have up to 4 dwarves. We only had 3, which really did change a little bit of the elements, which I'll talk about in a bit about your special skills, because each dwarf does have different weapons and different specials. And I think that's really a little bit of the magic of Galactic, even at this early access level, is that not everybody has a ton of different skills that they can use. In fact, you have just a couple, and they can only be used a certain amount of times. And then you have your basics, like, for example, me, I have a Gatling gun. And that Gatling gun actually works fairly well for a little bit of mining. Now, that's the scanner. You can scan different items. I found the scanner to be somewhat useless over time. If you're in a solo mission, that scanner is also used to direct a robot that sort of takes up the space of these 2 other dwarves with me. Does a pretty good job, actually, and I'll discuss that AI in a moment. Actually, I'll discuss it now. So the first thing we see here is this dirt. This indicates a new node, a new place to go. You see how fast he's digging? That is one of the great things about the teamwork in this game. He has drills. They run on a certain amount of power, so he can't use them forever. And they absolutely make quick work of everything versus the pickaxe, which you'll see me use in the game, and it's much slower. Now, the biome that we've chosen right now is more of an organic one, which means that there was some worry of different poisons and stuff within the game world. There's different little artificial things that you have to watch out for, and there's certainly different environmental worries that you have to take into consideration as well. So this is just not even really a swarm. It's just some of the alien defenders that you get in some of the locations. You'll notice it's a swarm in a second. Somebody's going to ask me about friendly fire, so I'll discuss that now. Friendly fire is really toned down, which I like because there's some enemies here which you need to use some fairly big bombs on. And so it is definitely turned down. I can see that bothering people a little bit, but for me, it just works in a game like this, especially when you're in a biome this tight. This is a very tight biome. It'll get wider in a bit, so it'll be a little bit easier for you guys to say. This was only, I think, the first or second biome we entered, so you can definitely tell we're sort of coming to grips with how everything works. And, oh, wait, I think this is the part where, yeah, so here we go. So basically, Starship Troopers creature comes out. You got your C4, which works just incredibly well against them. Does some friendly fire damage, so you really have to watch out. You have your shield and your health on the lower left, which you can see in the HUD. The shield and health can both be regenerated with crystals that you find inside the game world. And just like normal creatures, these bigger creatures give off a ton of gas. And that gas will actually eat up at your shield first, and I actually enjoyed that. I think it's a little bit easier to manage. So we're right now mining holomite. Now, if you look on the top right, you can see morkite and holomite are what we need to get through this level. There's a certain amount. And this is one of the things that was so awesome about this game after a very short amount of time, is that greed becomes a thing. And you're still collecting items together, which is hilarious. But one of our players, as he stated when he was playing, he was like, my God, the digging is just so satisfying. And pretty soon we would look over and he is just boring a hole. I don't know where he was going, to another planet. and you would find this little tiny opening, and you would follow it for like 45 minutes, and there he would be at the end, still digging. And of course, as he's got the pickaxe, and the other character has those drills, the other character will drill much faster, but they run on power. Everything here really does. That's the thing about the game. You have your couple skills, and you have your weapons all run on power. One of my skills is this zip line. Now, the zip line allows for me and any other dwarf to ride it to wherever I can shoot it and mine what's there, or escape if you need to. And escaping is going to be quite important. I'll explain that in a second. But here you can see that sometimes you're not going to actually be where you need to be or close enough. So you can do mining in different ways, or you can just reset and use another zip line. But unfortunately, those are numbered. So you have to really actually watch out. Now, this is, I think, our second biome, maybe third. So you can certainly see us misusing a couple of these skills. That's just pretty much normal. Let's talk a little bit about the AI. I was really surprised by this. Here's me depositing my different booty into the machine that follows us around, and that's where you put all of your items. So you can't just continually mine forever. At some point, even a dwarf sack gets full. So that's what was great about the AI. It could find us anywhere. It didn't matter where we were. There was not a single time the AI got tripped up, because the AI works on a node pathing system that's a little different than what you see in most other games. And basically what happens is, if you can make it through, sort of like a cat, if a cat's head can make it through, the rest of the cat can make it through. That is pretty much what occurs with these robots. And I absolutely adored that. I thought it made the game so much easier when you knew that you could call that thing at any time you wanted. It's also very important because it can cause you some stress, especially later on in the game, because at the end of the game, when you've gathered all of your items, you press a button on it, and that machine will walk back to the dropship. And when it gets to the dropship will take off. And sometimes it can go where you can't. So here you see the driller just doing an awesome job here, but he passed it up a little bit. He needs to drill into that dirt. That's how you can tell. You saw me bring up the scanner. The scanner is great because it's like a 1970s ASCII type look. I mean, it looks like something from an Apple II GS. It's absolutely great. It's not enough information to really make you go, I know exactly where to go, but you can sort of figure things out if you stare at it long enough. And I really did enjoy the way it was set up. Now, I'm going to jump and show you a different location, but real quick, I want to show the vanity shop and the different items you can get. There isn't a ton of them. You can get some different armor, the headgear, the hair colors, and of course, you can upgrade the various weapons, as I said before, like the guns, and give you more uses for C4. Now, hopefully, we won't have Takedown slowing us down here. Nope, he's following us. I'm going to go to the Crystalline Caverns. You can see the work environment hazard level 1. There's 3 different hazard levels, and that adds a bonus when you get back, or if you get back, to the base ship. That's added on top of everything. That can really be important, especially later in the game when you want to go to those larger areas, the areas that are more complex. And if you really haven't upgraded, it can be quite difficult to balance and get deeper. This is actually one of those games where I was really surprised by the cycle and the different way in which that gameplay loop sort of worked out, because it is short and tight when you really think about it. It's basically entering into the area, finding the materials, hitting the button to escape, and trying to get back to your main base before the dropship shoots back up into the air. It seems like a fairly easy thing to do, but the way the game is set up, the procedural generation, and the verticality, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, is just through the roof here and really does add to it. So as you can see, this is a completely different look and shouldn't really surprise anybody. It's a little bit like, as I said, biomes or any of the other world choosing you can do in titles like this. Of course, let's talk about the graphics for a second. I really do like the low poly look that they've done. One of the things that a lot of games have a problem with is they either go too high definition and then some things look bad and you start to have people noticing that, or they go super low, and there's obviously, I think, for a lot of people, something that is sort of ugly about that. Here in Galactic, they went with this odd, low-shaded texture style look for the polygons. Now, this works really well because your characters also look like that. You can see his gauntlet there on the left, and all the characters' faces also look like they're made like that. So there's a very cool symmetry to all of the art, and there's a balance there that we see missing in some other games. That creature that I shot, by the way, and this one as well, is just a loot bug. Basically, they explode minerals that they've collected, or that's the fiction, is that they've collected them, and you can shoot them, and they're just undigested like an oyster and a pearl. So grabbing those, oh, you can see a little bit of a generation issue there with the plant. It was just sort of floating in the sky right there to the left. That happens very rarely. talking about the generation, the procedural generation, the verticality, I was actually quite surprised that there weren't more mistakes just because this is early alpha. You get a couple of those little situations. So here we can see that we just passed by that little section of dirt there. That indicates once again that this goes to another area. Do you have to go there? No. Graphically, the game is just trying to indicate that that is going to a new node. It's going to a new open location. But you don't have to, because many times there will be all kinds of verticality just in your local space that you can also check out. So that opens up the game. And I think for me, that's one of the moments of magic I sort of got out of Galactic. There were some issues here and there, but overall the complexity and the verticality that goes in and under itself like this really did add to the title. There's a gameplay loop here, like I said, of trying to escape right at the very end, that when your machine is getting ready to take off and you've got 5 minutes and you have to figure out how to use whatever skills and items you have left over to try to get back before that ship takes off. And usually it's spawned quite a bit away. And trying to figure out vertically, like where you can and can't go, can be really, really tense. So this is a complexity of, I believe, 1 or 2. It's a slightly lower complexity, but there's still a great deal of verticality. There's a great deal of variable elements within the gameplay level itself. And the height changes really do make you feel like you're entering these big caverns, because you'll see bugs, you'll see the creatures coming down from the top. There's a glow bug there. You can see the nodes that you have to find a way to get to. I admit this is sort of just wasting ammo, but I absolutely loved the fact that you could mine with that gun. And it sort of does help a little bit if you need some money, just a little extra money, and by doing so you're going to get some kind of bonus, or you're going to get, definitely the most important thing is a supply redrop. Supply redrops are drop ships that come down and they resupply you fully up. There's 4 sections, but if only 2 dwarves are playing, then you can use 1 section twice, and or 1 section a piece again, and you can get even more items from that respawn or from that resupply, which actually really impressed me that they thought of that. It doesn't just drop down with 2, which is great. I love the lighting here. There's a really subtle use of the lighting. The throw of the fire or the flashlight is a little short, I say, but overall I still like it. Coming to the graphics again for a second, one of the reasons why I do like the low polygon look is because it handles the lighting quite well when it comes to its reflection across the surfaces. And it gives this haunting look to everything that I think you could do, of course, in a detailed environment, but I think overall you would be getting less of a frame rate. You would see some issues with performance there. And later on in the game, you are taking on swarms. It's not EDF levels of swarms. It's not Earth Defense Force, but you're taking on enough that it can be a situation where you may want that higher frame rate to sort of be able to be a cushion for you when that many creatures come out. So you can see me just sort of mining over the top of our character there, putting in the items here, counting up on the right for what we have. If we get enough nitra, again, we can get a supply drop, which will allow us to refresh our weapons. Taking him out. I just love the low poly look to everything. It's just very cool. It's done very well. It's exactly sort of what I wanted. It's that ethereal look to everything. And it's been done poorly. There's other games I've reviewed where I didn't really like this look. So you see me throw a flare there. I think it's important to discuss those. The flares regenerate. You can use the flares as sort of a, a trail back to where you came from, because you usually need to know where you came from to get back at the end of the game. The problem with the flares is if you're like me and like the other players here, you throw a lot of them, and then those flares, they die out fairly quickly. And when they do, what that can result in is it can result in you sort of walking into a large area with a ton of flares on the ground and having difficulty finding out where you actually came from, especially in those higher complexity caves. So you have to be really intelligent. Now here, of course, we've got silver. I think it's, yeah, I'm sure it's silver. I almost said I think it is, but I'm absolutely sure it is. Just absolute dwarf fever. Once that dude saw gold, like, you would be in the middle of a battle, you'd be like shooting guys, and you'd be like, where's silver? And in the background, you could hear this slight tink, 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 as he was off there fucking still digging gold, even while we were getting shot. The dude was just absolutely addicted to it. And I think I said this before, but one of the things he had mentioned was the mining is just so satisfying in the game. And it really is. It eats up just what you sort of hope and expect every time you use a pickaxe. And of course, the engineer, or the digger, I'm sorry, can absolutely just tear ass through anything. But again, everything but the pickaxe takes some kind of ammunition or energy that can wear out. And the flares, which do end up respawning, which is nice. But he's going up there working towards that. Looks like we're at 27 of 400, so we're still way, way low on our Morkite, and we still have to continue to fight on. One of the things you'll notice is I've got 400 bullets in the Gatling gun and an 800 total. When you are that low in your primary resource you're searching for, Morkite here, this is me trying to mark the trail, which failed spectacularly. But when you are trying to do something like this and you're trying to take that Morkite and you realize you're at such a low level, that's when you really start looking at the money that you have and thinking, you know what, I would love to have the money later for upgrading an item when we get back to the ship, but instead, let's do a supply drop. The supply drops are fascinating, and here's why. They dig into the earth, and that means that now the enemies have a way to get to you through that hole, which really surprised me. And let's talk a little bit about the AI and the way they work for the bugs and the companions. So you guys have seen that robot that we call and move. That robot works on, I think I said this before, but a node-based pattern. They can end up following you anywhere you can go, and then you have the bugs, which can do the same. So that's the one thing I did notice, is even the giant bugs can get through a small hole. It doesn't really do a great job of showing that that's going on, other than, well, a giant fucking bug coming through a really small hole, or the hole the size of a dwarf, which looked a little odd at times. But what it did do is it stopped that thing where you barely open a hole in an area, and then you go in, you do your shit, and then you run off, and you pick apart the enemies. That cannot happen in this game. You really cannot pick apart the enemies. They will be able to get wherever you are. They can climb on almost any surface. And so basically you're fucked if you think that you can get away with just sort of skimming by. Here you can see my shield's taking some hits. And it's funny because in the middle of a battle, your shield will take a hit and you'll think it's an enemy. So you'll be spinning around and then not realize somebody else killed one of the gas emitting creatures. And that can really affect you. I love the look here, this crystalline look. They did such a good job with everything. And they make each location look at least a good deal different. As you guys saw at the starting, we had more of the planetary surface with the hanging vines and stuff. It really does help to add that desire to want to see just one more level, want to see one more place. And of course, again, procedurally generated, which means everybody's going to see different levels. Now, let's talk about the special skills, because you're going to start seeing us use them. I have a rappel gun. What this does is it allows me to shoot as long as it's not too steep of an angle, and anybody can crawl on that wire. Now, you can shoot it directly into a mineral, so I could shoot it into that gold there on the left. What that would do is that would allow for me to slide up and then mine that gold, and any other dwarf can use it. Some of the other dwarves have quick escape guns that are like the rappel gun, but other people can't ride them. It sort of just pulls them along like the bat wrangler or whatever you want to call it, which is very cool. Silver, our guy who right now is digging through the gold, he can set down turrets. Now the turrets are fantastic. Here we go. The reason why I like these so much, number one, they tell you how many bullets, 75 here. But number two, he can also reload them as the game continues. Number three, they actually warn you where the enemies are coming from, because that can be quite difficult if you have 3 or 4 openings to a spot you're being swarmed, and you'll see that auto gun swivel around really quick, and you know the moment it's doing that there's probably an enemy. You see me drop that C4, boom, use it right there. That C4 is just absolutely spectacular against all the enemies. It can also blow out spaces for mining and make entrances and all that kind of stuff, but really the best bet is against those guys, the green budded dudes from Starship Troopers. Anytime you get a chance, we see the other dwarf throw that, and then boom, kills it. What you do is you throw it at the ground, you let that bug come across it, and then you fire it. Works incredibly well. But remember this, most of these bugs will drop some type of gas for a while after they die, which can be quite difficult to work around if you're in a contained area and you've killed 2 or 3 of these, like we just did. You can see that right there. Comes right out of the ground right there. And that does happen sometimes where, so basically you're supposed to understand that they're boring creatures, that they can bore through anything, and they don't. For the most part, what they do is they come through entrances, but sometimes you will see them, what looks like them coming up out of the ground, and then what you'll find, if maybe when we go down into this area, you'll see that really the game was indicating they were crawling up the side of the wall, and then it was just some clipping there. I'm assuming that clipping will get fixed since this is early access, but we'll see. There we go. Now, people have asked me how I thought the mine pick did for damage. It actually does really well. It does 20 points of damage starting, 30 if you upgrade it. And I have to say that even on the ass end of that Starship Troopers type of creature, we were able to do fairly good damage with the pickaxe. So if you're in a bind, you can actually defend yourself quite well. And these are sturdy little dudes. Even the engineer, who supposedly isn't, that's the one that Silver is, they, with the turrets, they'll be like, yeah, you know, if you can get the turret down before you die, and or put a platform down, those kind of things. I honestly felt that he didn't die any more than anybody else. It's just a little bit of a smart usage of your different elements, the different items that you have. Yeah, this was hard, man. This was one of those situations where you have so many elements occurring at one time that it can be almost just frighteningly overburdening. Now, as we continue to play this game, it got 10 times better. You know, you start to pick up on what's going on. But at first there, getting attacked here, and getting attacked with that verticality, but also getting attacked in an area with those stalactites or stalagmites that are sticking up, that can be quite difficult because they will, of course, impede movement. And at some point, you end up getting stuck on them, and the enemies will just crawl right on over them and kill you. So there's me searching. This is a nice node here that you can see. And the game is all about communication, and it's super important. There were times where, like I said, we would be fighting somebody off, and we'd hear that chink chink as somebody was smashing through some gold, you know, a half a mile away. And you're like, dude, we need help over here. You know, we're dying. And you sort of have to remind each other what you're doing at any one time. But we didn't ever get lost as a group. We lost each other a couple times, but there's various ways around that which worked quite well. Here you can just see how far really we've traveled, which is one of the things I like so much, that verticality. Like I said before, you're never 100% sure. You also don't have to worry here. That's important. You don't have to worry about how that robot is orientated. They could be upside down completely, and you could still drop something into them. So here I'm just looking down on them. It's just such a great feeling. Anybody can call the robot to put away your supplies, which is nice. Moves quite quickly. Yeah, boy, there was a lot here. I forgot. So gathering the Morkite, you can see we're only at 56 out of 400. It only counts what you put inside of the machine, not what the dwarves have on them. That's important because if a dwarf dies, which they can, if a dwarf dies, they die with whatever's in their bag. And you can respawn them if they've died in a short time period, and if you don't, then you lose those items, which can make it quite difficult because you can have to go lower and lower into the ground. So there's some dirt indicating that this is most likely the next place to go. One of the things I liked is as the complexity rose, again, that it didn't mean we had to go through that dirt. So a lot of people might feel that they're directed or something. And I could certainly see people feeling that way. But as the complexity grew, that situation sort of faded to the background and became less and less of an issue. This is just me looking around, trying to decide what I need to do. And discussing like we did, like, where are we going? See there, okay, so that's what I was hoping we would find here. So you can see this unique looking material. There's gold there, but you can see this. This is, I think they call it, let's see what, it's popping up a little too quick. Oh, Bismer. So this allows for you to upgrade your items. So you do need this. And that can really become difficult because even if you've got a ton of money, you can go up and you can get ready to upgrade and you can find out, oh shit, I'm out of this stuff. So whenever you see that, I'm telling you right now, you definitely want to mine it. I love the mining nodes and how they work. They just work incredibly well. People have also asked, are the mining nodes super deep? As in, do you just start and then you go for like 6 years on a gold vein, for example? I will say there are, for sure, incredibly long gold nodes. That's the one thing I noticed. If there was a node of gold, you might end up going pretty deep into it. You know, a couple dwarves deep. If it was something else, I noticed it didn't seem to be as deep, which I actually liked. That meant I could decide a little bit of a strategy, what I wanted to end up digging first and so forth. So we're going to talk about music and sound for a second. First, we'll talk about sound. The sound is actually excellent. They do a lot of good processing on their sound effects. There's a crystalline feeling to situations like where we are right now and environments where we are right now. Here's, of course, me using my handy-dandy rappel gun. And I really did like it. Everything has a good feel to it, and it is a little saccharine, especially when you're, you know, cracking the different nodes. There's a little bit of that really high echoey bit to the sound effects. Of course, that's that reward spectrum sound for people, so it's not necessarily unexpected, and I liked it. When it comes to the music I actually had an issue with, and there's various reasons why. They went with a more, I guess, discordant, almost Flash Gordon vibe, which I thought I would like. But we layered it a couple times. I heard all the players that I played with complaining about the music. It was just a little too discordant, a little too like static, a little too, I guess I would say distracting versus even if it was silent or even if it was real music. It was that kind of music sometimes, as you guys have heard me joke, where it seems like somebody found O-Gun for Fruity Loops and just laid on the keyboard. That kind of feeling did sort of crop up there. So here you can see us mining, and it looks like he's made a mistake, so I just shoot there to indicate where he needs to mine. Now, one of the reasons why I shot... Oh, it looks like I shot all the way through. One of the reasons why I did that is because sometimes if you say, you know, go this direction or go that direction, it can be a little difficult because somebody's facing you and you say go left and they go right because it's their left to them. That kind of problem. So I started using the gun to direct people at times if we had an issue. You can also use the compass for sure, but overall I found that sometimes a well-placed round was your best bet. So here comes that supply drop. And as I said here with the supply drops, it will come down through the ground, which means that, of course, enemies can use it. One cool thing also, though, if enemies are near it, it will hurt them. So here's me just resupplying. As you can see, it's 50%. There's 4 of them. There's 3 dwarves, so we can choose who gets them. This time I was the one. So you can have one person who gets 100% of their resupplies back, and the other people get 50%. And that, of course, is bought once again with the nitro. And he's just pouring. I love the look of the minerals as you put them in. Just a bunch of jewels. So cool. Very cool lighting effects. Nothing's ever truly black dark, even though it probably should be. There's always some bioluminescent life form or some kind of lichen on the ground. And I do enjoy that. I think it's better. And there's me. I was joking when we were playing. I was like, I just failed 2 flare throws. That can happen where just because of the way the game is based, you do have that crosshair, but of course with a grenade, you're tossing it quite high. They don't have a long lob, and you cannot bake those. You cannot hold them down to throw them further, which I think a lot of people are going to have an issue with. I liked because it required us to think around, like, do we enter this dark area? Where do we throw that flare? But I know for some people that'll bother them. Those, of course, blow up. Oh, or attack me directly. Now, this is one of the things I noticed about the game, and I'm not 100% sure this is on purpose, but it certainly did seem to really understand how many entrances we had to an area. So when we got to an area where there was like 3 or 4 entrances and exits, that's when a swarm seemed to happen. And that's when things could get quite interesting because enemies can come from any location. There's me just checking our back end. We always had somebody who was really good. This was a good team. We always had somebody who was always watching just a little bit. Except, of course, I say that, and then what happens? We get attacked because they can spawn from the ceiling. You have to really watch for that, too, because a lot of times we were like, where are they coming from? And then you look up, and there's a little hole up there where the enemies are getting out of. Of course, there's the C4 killer right there. So satisfying to kill that. So what are some of the things I didn't like about the game? Well, right now, as an early access title, there does seem to be, I wouldn't say it's a dearth of locations or things, but it certainly does feel to me like people are going to dive into this. If they really like it, it's not going to take a very long time before they start to see or feel a little bit of a repetitive nature there. That is also tied directly into the gameplay loop, that every single character's specials, they only have a couple uses of it. And it's something I love, but I can absolutely see that being a small issue on the side, and an issue that they're going to have to look at and try to figure out, because you have to balance these dwarves correctly. If we had gone in with a different team, we would have actually had to play different. And that's one of the magic bits, I think, that you have with all of these other games. You have it with a Vermintide and a Left 4 Dead. You have it with these titles where you feel like, hey, if I play with this different group, I have to, you know, be closer to them so I can heal this one character more because they have low health or what have you. These enemies are coming from the ceiling, yeah. So I dug that, but I can see people having a problem with it. For me, I thought that the skills that you have were just able to be used in so many different ways, and it was so enjoyable to see somebody put up a platform, somebody else digging through the ground to, you know, enter us into a new node, and at the same time, I'm repelling to get just a little bit more gold. It absolutely worked. So here we go. Time to earn your paycheck. We got a doozy of a swarm. So they always warn you when a swarm's coming. Like I said, most of the time they also warn you that a swarm is lowering its number. They'll say something like you wiped out the swarm almost or something, which usually indicates you have one last swarm to worry about or one last wave. Let's see where these guys come from. So you can see our guy putting down the turrets. This is not, I think many people might be like, well, you know, we've seen this kind of gameplay in other games. It's absolutely true. We have. That's the thing. A lot of these titles, people try to pretend everything's brand new. It's not. This is just one of those games where they tried to balance it. They tried to decide how they were going to go about things, and they're offering a fairly solid title when it comes to performance. I've had 0 crashes. However, You know what you can't do? You cannot map your friggin' keyboard, which is an absolute disaster. The first time I started playing, somebody was already complaining about that. The inability to map a keyboard, even now in an alpha, is almost something you can sort of notice is going to be an issue with gamers. If you just fix that, if you allow them to map it, it will be one headache you will not have to worry about. That's a headache also that we see in games that are either complete or are coming into completeness from a beta that didn't allow that. And you still see people bringing it up and being like, I want to remap. I think it's totally fair, and that is definitely a weakness with this title. On the other hand, one of the strengths is it actually works with a gamepad. It works quite well. One of our players was playing with it, didn't seem to have any issues whatsoever with that. Now, when it comes to enemy diversity, this is going to be something that's brought up, I think, as an early access title. It's got a lot, and I'm going to cut here to some single-player footage that I ended up filming later, which does show a little bit different creature makeup. Now, I don't know how many creatures they're going to have total or how many they have planned total. Overall, I think the mob setups are excellent. I just hope that they have enough different biological creatures to really keep people interested. So here's some footage of me later in the night playing. This is a Glyphid Brood Nexus, which, well, I don't know. It just sounds like scary word to me. And then I'll cut here and show you guys a large section, and then we'll end this preview. So this large section has some creatures on the ceiling that are a lot like Half-Life 1, where you have the tentacle creature that could grab you, the mouse-sucking thing, and it would pull you up with its tongue. You have different biodiversity on the walls, and it was like droplets of almost a blood in a way. And then there were other places where there was like droplets of water. Here's me trying to get down and trying to figure out how to get down all that way, because once again, now as the dwarf who's only got the rappel line in a certain number of uses, and I didn't really want to just use it and then find out that I needed it at the end of the mission. So it was time to dig and time to get through that as quick as possible, and I'll show you that. Okay, so yeah, that took a couple minutes. As you can see the line there, that was actually quite a dig. And again, I had to do that because I was by myself, so you really have to judge where you want to use those special items that you have and how often. So here I'm taking a pot shot at one of the tower creatures. What these towers do is they shoot out these flies that damage you over time, and they can be quite disconcerting, and they can certainly end up fucking up your vision. So you want to shoot those as quick as possible, and I tried to shoot a little farther than I thought. But this area itself will show you a little bit of the different biological creatures, which I think is cool. It indicates that obviously they know that they want to break it up. They want to have some different creatures that show up. And it sort of gets creepier and creepier. You saw that brood thing. Oh, here's a fossil. So we can just pick that one up. Again, I don't know why I couldn't pick up the one earlier. But get that fossil, and then you start seeing a loot bug we've seen before. You start seeing these weird pustules on the side of the wall that are like blood or water. You can see it there in the left corner. And there's just something very creepy about that location. And I really dug this. I really started, even when I was playing by myself, I was like, man, this has this super desolate feel. When it comes to gunplay, everything works out really well. It's not the major part of the game, but it was super enjoyable, and I had no problems with aiming or anything like that. I would say overall, you're looking at a title that, at least for now, does have a lot of content. It is a spectacular four-person title. I got to say that. It is, when you have multiple people playing, it is one of the most fun experiences you will have in a long time if you're this kind of co-op fan and you're not PvP or somebody who enjoys just beating on the hell out of each other. When it comes to a single player, that's a little bit more of an open-ended question, and one that I don't think I can certainly answer. I think that a lot of people will like the desolate style of gameplay, playing by yourself and exploring. We've seen that even in titles that have multiplayer. Some people just really do like to play in games like that. This one can feel quite lonely at times. So I'll be interested to see as the time goes on just what people think of it and who likes that kind of feel and who actually wants a little companionship for their dwarf, a little sweet lovin' from their friends. But that's pretty much it for this preview. I appreciate people watching it. It's definitely a longer one, but this is one of those titles where it is early access. We didn't get a ton of time to play it, and I really wanted to show people some of the stuff that we do with patrons. I think it's an absolute blast to play with them and be able to engage with the audience in that way. It was just a really fun time. So once again, thanks to Takedown and thanks to Silver, because you made the gameplay prior to this level that I'm playing right now quite enjoyable and hilarious at times as well. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. If you want to become a patron, you want to jump into games like this, you want to get the swag, and you want to help me continue to make cool reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap or previews like this, you can always join the patron page, and that link is in the description. Peace out, and enjoy the rest of your week.